What's up, Meta Nerds? This is a project I've been really excited about for a while. This is the first comic of the Star Wars 1998 series, which would come to be known as the Republic series, covering the events in the galaxy from before the Battle of Naboo up through the Clone Wars, with 26 of the best story arcs in all of Star Wars, spread over 115 issues. Let's start with Prelude to the Rebellion, 1 of 6. The year is 33 BBY, 1 year before the Battle of Naboo, 11 years before the Clone Wars. On the mid-rim world of Cerea, home to the Cerean species, we find a lush but primitive world, where galactic trade had not pulled this planet into the orbit of Republic monoculture. The luxuries and technologies of the Republic had their merits and their threats, from high-tech weaponry to drugs, but even the simple but inevitable erasure of local traditions. Because of where it sat on hyperspace trade routes, Cerea had managed to stay out of most wars of the past, and at least for now, the Republic was looking to negotiate with the elders of Cerea. Representative Cerea told them that this world was backwards, and that the technology exported from the core would actually serve to more effectively preserve the rich ecology and natural resources here, which would have been seen as ludicrous to anyone who had been to the capital with a skyscraper on every inch of its surface. After the pitch for a modernized Cerea, a man steps forward and introduces himself as Ki-Adi-Mundi, a Jedi Knight. He urges them to reject the offer, and look only to the differences in their cities. The Cerean capital city complex existed in harmony with its surroundings, while one need only look to the outsider citadel to see that it was spewing a constant cloud of toxic emissions, and was surrounded by a circle of death that was ever spreading outward, poetically describing how the air itself in that abominable city weighs one down, that the sunlight must seem like an intruder to those raised in this self-imposed artificial darkness. The angry male Twi'lek offworlder clenches his jaw, suppressing his anger, and warns the Jedi that he will regret this. Later, the proud Mundi is explaining this triumph to his bond wife, and she interrupts to tell him that he needs to speak with his honor wife Mawin about an issue with his daughter. Though most Jedi would take up a life of celibacy, some would pursue physical relationships while avoiding the ties and risks of attachment with normal dating and marriage. But there were very rare exceptions that were allowed to have families due to their species' unique biology or culture. For every male, there were 20 females on Cerea, and polygamy was expected. So much so that it was deemed to cause greater harm to remove Kai from the gene pool. And though most men only dreamed of a certain aspect of this lifestyle, the reality of this life often made him feel like he was a politician. And these fights between the main wife, called the bond wife, and the several honor wives was inevitable and awkward. Mawin says that their daughter Sylvan had run off with a tech rat boyfriend, and they hug while he promises to find her in the big off-worlder city. The bond wife Shea was eavesdropping so hard that she overwatered all the plants, and Kai points out how silly it is to be jealous. And when she says that despite all his wisdom, he knows nothing about women, Kai sarcastically posits that if he did, he would guess that she was jealous that he had produced many children with all of his many honor wives, but that she, his bond wife, had never gotten pregnant. This led to an outburst and her storming out, as she implies that he never finds time to let her play with his little cone head. And as he races out on his Aurochs, he thinks that he is angry at himself, not her. 4 of his wives have already given him 7 daughters, and he was able to hide his disappointment at not having a boy yet, but he knows that Shea has a bit of the Force in her, and knew him so well that he could never hide anything from her. If she were to give him another girl, he doesn't want to hurt her with his disappointment in what should be a joyous celebration of life. The first stop in the search for Sylvan was a public forum where the younger generation was holding a pro-tech rally. As he watched them give in to their passions, moved to rage by mere words, he fears for how these wordsmiths can manipulate those like his daughter. While in a distant field, Elephant Mon is scanning for minerals, and is ecstatic to find Melium, a mineral that feeds the Tekavi plant, which itself makes Gwillian, a drug that is quickly becoming popular in the underworld, a drug that could only be found on Cerea, and Mon thinks he just found a local growth. In the off-worlder citadel, Mon is checking in on his latest smuggled goods, dreaming about his future life as a drug lord. Meanwhile, Kai had lost count of how many angry youths he had listened to spouting off cliché reasons why Cerea needs to join the Republic. Though the anger turns to excitement when the next speaker, Braun, hovers into position. He was one of the rare off-worlders allowed to leave the Citadel, and now he plays the victim, acting like the elders want to stifle his expression of freedom every time he brings the youth to the brink of violence. His speech says that the galaxy laughs at Cereans and their backward traditions, closing by telling them to start opposing their elders, that they have a right to join the galactic community. At this, Kai speaks up, saying this off-worlder and these children don't know anything about rights. And while the kids try to silence him, Braun seems generous and offers him the stage, And as he takes the podium, he sees his daughter, and the tech rat giggles, saying, "Here comes the back in my days speech." And Ki does share the wisdom passed down by his father, that though they had the credits to buy off-world trinkets decades and centuries ago, the elders knew that the true cost was hidden, and its price was the soul of Cerea. As he tries to get them to see that the whole planet will end up like the Citadel, the tech rat boyfriend loses it and rushes the stage. And Ki's final point is that they need to think about what will replace these institutions that countless generations of Cereans had built. But the crowd sees this cautious, conservative impulse as mere oppression. The boyfriend pushes Ki down into the crowd, where the mob grapples with him, tossing him out with cheap shots and insults. And to make this even worse, Ki could sense that his daughter was almost embarrassed at how weak he seemed, and she couldn't understand that as a Jedi he was restraining himself. As the mob pulls him away, we see his lightsaber fell to the ground, to be picked up by the boyfriend Maj, who accidentally activates it and sends the beam straight through the chest of another youth. With this, Ki springs into action, effortlessly beating the mob's back to get to the victim, while Sylvan and Maj sneak off. And of course, as the people close in, they assume a Jedi just killed a man. And Ki sees that the crowd has brought out weapons, hoping to avenge their fallen comrade. And in a split second, Ki locks eyes with a grinning Brawn before the human disappears. Thanks for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss anything, check out these videos, and most important of all, remember, never trust a tech rat, and the Force will be with you, always.